Now on Talking Solutions, Will Batista, you've got to do with Marsy's Law. Welcome back.
Thank you for having me again.
You were in several months ago talking about Marsy's Law, which my little one-sentence explanation would be that it is rights for victims of crime. Because certainly the criminals that are being tried, innocent until proven guilty and all of that, they have rights, but so should the people who are the victims of crime. And that's, in a nutshell, what Marsy's Law is about. I know it was up in Carson City before the Nevada State Legislature, and from everything I heard, it passed. So are we good to go now?
Yes and no. Just to summarize, Marsy's Law is a constitutional initiative here in Nevada. We are seeking to amend the Nevada Constitution to add equal rights for victims of crime. And it's important to do that in the state constitution because we want to make sure that it's enforceable and that we do have a level playing field between those who commit the crimes and those who are the victims of such. So back in 2015, we passed the legislature, just to give you a quick summary. And then this last legislative session, we passed with just about 25 minutes left on the clock of the Nevada legislature.
Whoa.
Yeah. So because we are a constitutional amendment, it required that the legislature pass it twice in consecutive sessions, and then it goes to the ballot. So now that we have passed those two hurdles, we now go to the ballot in 2018 for the voters of the state of Nevada to decide whether Marsy's Law should be adopted into the Nevada Constitution.
Oh, so now it's time for us as voters to say, put it into the Nevada State Constitution.
That's right. And, as I discussed with you last time around, we feel it's so important. Anybody can become a victim of crime at any point, regardless of who you are, where you live, what your political ideology is. This is really a bipartisan or even nonpartisan issue. And it's incredible the amount of support that we have gotten all across the state. We have people like Nevada Attorney General Adam Laxalt. Here in Clark County, we have District Attorney Steve Wolfson. We have many of the county commissioners on board. So we have members of law enforcement, we have elected officials, members of municipalities all across the state coming and saying, yeah, we need this. We need to ensure that victims have a voice in the criminal justice process system and that they're not just lost. The great thing about it is during the testimony before the Assembly Legislative Operations a few months ago, District Attorney Steve Wolfson did a great job of explaining how several of the offices across the state are already doing this, but we want to make sure that if it's happening 80% of the time or 90% of the time, that it's happening 100% of the time. We want to make sure that all victims of crime across the state are treated equally and that they feel that they've been treated fairly.
Makes sense. It seems like something like Marsy's Law would be a unanimous call. Do you have anybody who says, it's not needed, it's not necessary?
Yeah, we have some detractors who worry about what effect it's going to have on the criminal justice process. Marsy's Law has now passed in 5 other states. It started in California in 2008 and has subsequently been passed in Illinois in 2014. And this last election, 2016, it passed in Montana, North and South Dakota. Many of the detractors are concerned about what effect it's going to have on the court system. In the states where Marsy's Law is fully operational and up and running, there's no backlog. We don't seek to diminish the rights of any other individual in the criminal justice process. That's just not what this is about. This is about treating people fairly and making sure that they have rights observed in the Constitution.
And it's like you were mentioning, Will, we're leveling the playing field.
Yeah.
Will Batista is with us today on Talking Solutions, Regional Director of Marsy's Law for All. And Will, you're mentioning that it's passed in several other states. So this is pretty much a great idea for people all across the country that victims of crimes should have the same rights.
That is correct. Our efforts are now nationwide. Our national headquarters is here out of Las Vegas. And so it's important that Nevadans understand the importance of this on a daily basis as we're talking to people who share their stories, who have been victims of crime. We feel and we hear the need for this more and more every day. And we want to make sure that the voters of Nevada understand why this is necessary. Some of the provisions that are critical are the right to notification. You should be able to to know when the offender is coming up for a plea bargain or when the case is starting trial. Those are provisions that are particularly important. Things such as the right to privacy. If you're the victim of domestic abuse, for example, we want to make sure that your information is protected so that the abuser cannot come back and try to hurt you again. Those are common sense things that we feel very strongly about, and making sure that everyone is protected. At the end of the day, it's all about people and making sure that people are protected. When a criminal commits a crime and they're arrested, they're read a number of rights right off the bat. We want to make sure that nobody forgets about the victims and the situation that they're left behind in. We want to make sure that they know what resources are available to them to help them through this difficult situation. They've already been through a traumatic incident. We want to make sure that we alleviate anything moving forward.
Would be a true situation of adding insult to injury.
Correct.
And the phrase that you came up with a couple minutes ago, Will, common sense. That's what Marsy's law seems like to me. Of course, that's just personal opinion. But it sounds like most other people that you are coming across also agree that this is important, that crime victims should have rights as well.
Yeah, we've spoken to lots of advocacy organizations across the state, and we have received the support and endorsement of almost all of them across the state. I would encourage voters to feel free to visit our website. You can go to nv.marsyslaw.us, and Marsy is spelled MARSYSLAW. Visit our website, take a look at the collaboration video that we've put together with people all across the state, advocates, like I mentioned earlier, elected officials who really feel the need for this. It's one thing for us to talk about it in the abstract, but it's different if you've been a victim of crime or if you know somebody who has been a victim of crime. And something that we definitely encourage people to do, if you want to get involved, first and foremost, of course, visit our website, visit us on Facebook, it's Marsy's Law for Nevada, or follow us on Twitter as well. At the end of the day, the best way for voters to understand that and the need for Marsy's Law is to be able to tell victim stories. And it takes a lot. A lot of people deal with tragedy or traumatic incidents in different ways. And so it takes a lot for victims of crime to be willing to share their stories. But if you are willing, please feel free to reach out to us. You can reach out to us on social media, or you can email me personally. My email address is will, W-I-L-L, @marsyslaw.us. And again, Marsy's Law is MARSYSLAW.us. We'd love to be able to hear you out and hear about your situation and how Marsy's Law could have prevented some of these incidents from happening again.
I'm going to have all of the links on our Talking Solutions Facebook page, plus, as always, podcast of our discussion today. Will Batista is with us talking about Marsy's Law. It's now passed through the Nevada State Legislature 2 different times. So it happened in 2015, happened again in 2017, just moments before it was not going to make it because they were coming down to the wire. But now it's going to appear on a ballot question in November 2018. I love my little voters books, going through and marking what I'm going to vote for before I ever go in. Every different ballot question has information inside the booklet. And I know exactly how they word it because I do it every time. Arguments for passage and arguments against passage. I think it will be interesting to see what they're going to come up with against passing this because it just makes sense.
We want to make sure that voters out there understand that 2018 is going to be a very exciting year for Nevada, right? We have all of our constitutional officers up for election, our governor, lieutenant governor,
Senator.
attorney general. We also have a federal race that's one of the most watched races in the country. Senator Heller is up for re-election. So that's going to take a lot of the attention for the upcoming 2018 November general election. But we want voters to maybe take a deeper dive and understand that some of the ballot questions, especially Marsy's Law, are important. And it's important because it will affect you in ways that you may not see today. Like I said, we never hope that anybody becomes a victim of crime, but you want to make sure that if you are a victim of crime, that you have provisions available in the Nevada State Constitution that protects your rights. And so, even though there's going to be a lot of excitement about other races, I just want to make sure that the voters of Nevada understand that Marsy's Law as a constitutional ballot, even though it's a little bit further down on the ballot, please make sure to vote in favor of Marsy's Law. Make your voice be heard and help Nevada become one more state that has enforceable constitutional rights for victims of crime.
And do understand, you won't be asked to vote on this until November of next year, well more than a year away. In the meantime, Will, what do you do? Are you going to still be working on education on the importance of voting and making Marsy's Law a part of the Nevada State Constitution between now and then?
Yeah. One of the most important things that we can do, like you mentioned, is educate voters on what Marsy's Law is, what it's not, and what it is going to do once it's in place. So we will be at a number of different events. If your organization is throwing an event, or if you want us to come and speak to you guys about what Marsy's Law is and how it would affect you and your community, please reach out to us. We would love to do that. But yeah, we will be out in the community at events, festivals, interacting with voters and helping them have a clear understanding of what Marsy's Law is and why you should support it. We're going to continue to talk to our elected officials and make sure that we have as many people on board as possible. If you have people from all across the state, from across party lines, white, black, doesn't matter who you are, this is important for everyone. It affects people all across the state of Nevada. And so that's our job, to make sure that everybody is informed about what their rights are or what their rights could be under Marsy's Law.
Will, as part of Talking Solutions, we always ask, what can we do to help you?
There's a number of things your listeners can do. One, go onto our social media pages and like us, follow us, make sure to be engaged. Also, help share some of the stories and some of the links that we put up on our Facebook pages and our website. I mentioned earlier, we always want to be able to hear from victims of crime as well for why this is a necessity. So if some of your listeners are a victim of crime, we would love for them to be able to share their story so that we can help educate voters a little bit better. We are not an advocacy organization, so I want to make sure that your listeners understand that. But we can point you to the right resources for those who have been victims of crime personally. Those are some of the most important things that you can do if you want to volunteer and help us by attending some of the festivals or hosting a group yourself. Please reach out to us. And of course, and most importantly, is in November of next year, we want your voters to vote yes on Marsy's Law.
You should come and see us again before we get to the voting part.
I would be more than happy to do so.
I'd love that, because I know we're well in advance of the November 2018 elections, and you're entirely right, Will. There's going to be so much going on, swirling around different issues and different people to vote for or against.
And that's why I feel it's so important to come out and educate voters about this early on, right? Because everybody's going to be inundated with a bunch of political messages moving into next year. If we can get this message out early into the community so that they understand it, when it comes time for voters to go to the ballot box, it'll be a refresher and say, oh yeah, I've heard about Marsy's Law. Oh yeah, I do support victims of crime. I think that victims of crime do deserve basic equal rights under the Nevada Constitution. That's our goal, is to get out ahead of this early on so that we don't have to compete with other messages that are out there.
I made my decision up on this a long time ago, so yes to Marsy's Law, and that's what you're looking to achieve for people.
Yes, ma'am.
Will, is there anything I'm forgetting?
We've covered everything. Your listeners need to understand, and hopefully your listeners are also voters, that we can't do this without your help. That's really what it comes down to. There are people out there who need this on the books. Think about them when you go to the ballot box.
Some people believe that their vote doesn't really count for anything, but it certainly does, and especially in getting Marsy's Law added to the Nevada State Constitution. You've heard about it. I saw it all over Facebook for months, and I would imagine we're going to see some more of that as we approach the election. The legislature said yes to it in 2015, again in 2017, since they did that 2 sessions in a row. Now it's going to be a ballot question so that we can amend the Nevada State Constitution in November 2018. I don't see why anybody would vote against it.
Neither do I.
I try not to be one-sided in my approach to anything during our discussions, but it just seems like giving equal rights to crime victims
is the right thing to do.
Yeah, it just makes sense. Will Batista, you are the Nevada Political Director for Marsy's Law for all of Nevada. Thank you for coming back to visit us today on Talking Solutions.
Thank you so much.
Come see us before the election.
I would be more than happy to.